Hey, how's your mother? Yeah, mother's all right.
Shalom.
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 Awesome. All praises to the Most High Power. His name is not Jesus.
So, yes, shalom.
It's not God in the Bible. That was put there too.
There's the, we do, first of all, give thanks and praise always. To the Most High, Ahayah, and Yashayah. Hold on.
Yeah, Josh, go ahead.
Say something.
Yeah, we are really, really blessed to come to you again another night. He's given us another day, Tony, right, Mary,
Yeah.
to express and share truth. When people talk to me now, even in the gym and elsewhere, I tell them, you want to talk to me, you're always going to get truth. You want to talk to me about the Bible? You stop me from sneezing? They're not going to hurt you, those fellows. Well, that's right. We'll just keep praying for you. Josh has got some kind of, like allergy with the pollen and stuff. So, but we want to thank each and every one of you who are viewing in to want to hear truth in these terrible last days that we're in. And we are in the last days. We're in the last times. I don't care how good the economy is. This devil will always paint a picture that everything is going good when it's actually going sour. America's gone south already. America is spent. The rulers of Esau in this world who rule the world with money have used America up already as far as, gain, making any kind of big dividends against them, against us here in America. It's all over. We're spent. We're a write-off. And it's not going to be long, folks. Not going to be long.
So, what we're going to do before we go into Revelation 17, is we are going to share the screen.
So stay tuned tonight. We're going into Revelation again. Anybody who's been following the book of Revelation with us this month, it's been a total blessing. Okay. We're going to show a clip again of Watchman. We really like what he has to say in his documentaries, but we don't agree with the Most High's name. That's not his name. Yeshua, Yahuwah, whatever they're calling him, this is wrong, but we're going to let that go because, we can learn. It's truth from a lot of people who are on internet that have truth. But it's clear and it's plain as the nose on your face. In Exodus 3:13, it plainly states who his name is, what his name is, and who he is.
So, I'm going to start the time.
The curse of generational curses, part 3. And worketh now in the children of disobedience. What's disobedience? Not keeping the law.
When your forefathers cried out to the Most High Elohim in bondage in Egypt, he sent me to deliver them by his mighty power. Our father plagued the Egyptians so greatly until Pharaoh was forced by the mighty hand of Elohim to let his people go. The day we left Egypt was glorious, but Israel was afraid. And their fear caused them to complain before the Most High. He parted the Red Sea, and he destroyed Pharaoh's chariots with the mighty Red Sea. Was this enough to cause Israel to praise the Most High Elohim and to give their hearts to him? No. They complained for meat, and he sent them quail. And while the meat was still in their mouth, Yahuwah smote them with a great plague. They complained for water, and I was sent by the Most High to speak to the rock. But the complaining was so redundant until I smote the rock with my staff. Because of that, I was not allowed to go to the promised land.
Because he struck Christ. He struck Yashayah.
When I sent 12 spies to view the land, 10 gave an evil report about the land and caused the hearts of all Israel to melt in fear. Again, complaining. So much complaining until the Most High caused Israel to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. 40 years? After all of this, you have been in many captivities and have been taken out of the land many times. You have killed the prophets and delivered the Messiah to be crucified. Israel, you are stiff-necked and uncircumcised in the hearts and the ears.
Come on.
How many times did I plead with the Father again and again to not destroy you for his name's sake? How many times did I ask the Father to stay his hand against you, O Israel? Until the Father had delivered you again to Egypt, slavery by ships. Isn't this what I told you would happen to you if you did not walk in his ways and keep his commandments?
Come on, keep his what?
Again, I say unto you, as I have said
You
before,
didn't hear him keep his Sunday church.
Hear, O Israel, I call heaven and earth to bear record against thee. Choose ye this day whom you will serve,
Come on.
whether it be life or death, or blessings or cursings. Thou shalt have no other God before the Most High Elohim. Serve him with all thine heart, thy mind, and thy soul. Give your heart to him. Love him with all thy heart, and keep his commandments, and he will deliver you.
All right.
There's a worldwide awakening going on. So-called African Hebrews are discovering their true identity and reconnecting to their heritage. For so long, we have been lied to and told many untruths about black populations all over the world. Whether you're here in South Africa, the UK, the Caribbean islands, in America, or other areas of the world, it is time to hearken unto the voice of truth. When you've been asleep for so long, you finally awaken to what is real. You may experience a sense of confusion as you try to unravel all the deceptions in your life. Let's take those of us who live on the African continent. Are we really inferior, or is that a false narrative that was passed around and accepted? many of us are starting to challenge the false narratives and take a closer look at the truth of the matter.
Come on.
Our Hebrew heritage is important to us and should be viewed through the eyes of cultural honor and not as if it's something to be swept under a rug or passed off to someone else. Across the African continent and around the world, so-called black people have been terrorized, marginalized, demonized, and penalized by European imperialistic persecution. The impact of this type of rulership has left a lasting mark on the lives and culture of indigenous people. For many, it is hard to face the fact that this type of brutality has damaged us to the core and that it will take an eternity to recover from this, with the same type of rulership still in place worldwide. The descendants of the imperialist regimes remain in a state of denial as to the negative impact their ancestors' actions have had on indigenous people. All of this was prophesied in the Bible, so understanding what has happened and what will happen in the future can help guide us back to the path of righteousness.
That's right.
Without this understanding, there will appear to be no hope for the dark indigenous people on the planet. The only way to peace on this planet is through true repentance of the chosen seed upon the earth. The Bible is our story, which has been stolen from us and rewritten with deception by the same people who subjugated so-called black people all around the world. As we begin to truly understand what our Heavenly Father requires of us, we will stop fighting the truth by defending the lies of our known oppressors. But simply shining the light on the truth of our people and those that have ruled over us. As this African Hebrew awakening continues to sweep across the nations, the sleepers will have no choice but to take notice. This is your heritage.
Come on.
Don't give it away, reject it, or take it lightly. Know that you are a chosen generation.
Come on.
It's time to be
Royal
lifted
priesthood.
out of the curse of generational curses.
That's right.
Shalom
Shalom.
from South Africa.
Wow.
So there are many cultures in Africa, but what many don't know is that some have Hebrew roots, even in Nigeria. The conquest and dividing of our lands has caused many of our original cultures to be lost. However, despite all of our trials and tribulations, some of us still hold on to our true culture as Israelites. Through oppression, the Europeans have tried to take it away, but yet we stand.
Like the South.
There's a worldwide awakening going on, and many of us
I didn't
are
hear
turning
you
back
say a
to
Christian
Heavenly
awakening.
Father by true repentance.
What's the awakening, Josh?
This is our only hope. Shalom from Nigeria.
You hear that? This is your only hope.
Hi, Shalom, Shalom from Israel. This is Ola, the daughter of Jethro. And I just heard that you black people that was stolen from Africa to America, that you don't know who you are, but you are the children of Yahweh, the children of Israel. And I'm telling you.
Wow, that's awesome.
The Jewish people confess.
Go ahead, Josh.
Watch.
And the Jew, what Rabbi says? Hey, and they'll come and bow down to your feet, knowing that I love you. That's it. That's the
Jewish people.
That's the prophecy.
This is Ola, the daughter of Jethro. And I just heard that you black people that was stolen from Africa to America, that you don't know who you are.
Come on.
But you are the children of Yahweh.
Awesome.
The children of
And
Israel.
what's her accent?
And I'm telling you, you have to come back
Israeli?
to your homeland,
Here?
to Zion, to Jerusalem, because us the Gentiles, we
Listen
need
up,
you.
folks.
We need you to come and
Did you hear that?
Go
She
ahead,
said,
Josh. That's awesome.
to Zion, to Jerusalem, because
The
us
world
the
knows
Gentiles,
who we are.
she said, us the Gentiles.
need you. We need you to come and pray, because you are our saviors. You're the one that was chosen by Yahweh to live in this land, not the Jewish people. It's you.
Not the,
Was-
wait, what?
What? That's good. That's good. Well, that's awesome. This is blessing me.
To
now.
live in this land, not the Jewish people. It's you.
Come on.
By true
Wait.
repentance.
Did you hear that?
We do need you. We need you to come and pray because you are. This is Ola, the daughter of Jethro. And I just heard that you black people that was stolen from Africa to America, that you don't know who you are, but you are the children of Yahweh, the children of Israel. And I'm telling you, you have to come back to your homeland, here to Zion, to Jerusalem, because us the Gentiles, we do need you. We need you to come and pray because you are our Savior. You're the one that was chosen by Yahweh.
Wait.
You live in this land, not the Jewish people, it's you. You were stolen from Africa, they deceived you, they told you that you are slaves, but you actually the children of Israel. And it's time just to come back. Come for your people, come back for us, come back for the whole Gentile people. Only you gonna save us. So please come back to Zion.
Segregation of whites and blacks, minorities, from black Jews to light Jews to dark Jews, black Jews, black Jews, black Jews. Yes, so it's not just blacks, it's anti-Semitism he expresses, but he's Jewish.
Conversion. Personally, I like to think that the same people who think Chuck Norris is a great actor think Obama's the Antichrist. That's hilarious to me. But keep in mind, according to the book of Revelation, John saw Jesus and described it as having hair like wool and feet the color of burned brass. Yeah, he's a brother. It's going to be very awkward for the rapture folk when Jesus comes back and winds up being a homeless liberal black guy who speaks zero English. Now, I know this is very depressing, all you rapture Christians, but cheer up. The rapture may be a racket, but it's not the end of the world. That's Viewpoint for tonight. I want to thank.
What I'm about to tell
no
you
rapture. Tell
is that the Israelites, so-called Jews that are living in Israel today, are not real Israelites. The real Israelites are the black and brown people of the world. What happened was when the black people that were the true Israelites, the brown people that were the true Hebrew Israelites, fell from God's word as it is written, were cursed. So what happened was Rome came and sacked that land, and they all fled. They went in all around the place, all around up north, south, east, west, but mostly down into Africa. They lived there for a little while in the wilderness until they were taken by slave ships to the Americas. The people that are in Israel today are converts. They come from Khazaria, which is southern Russia. They were visited by Hebrew Israelites at one time and learned from them. That's how they know all the customs. They can speak Hebrew and all that. They learned that. But they converted to Judaism. They are not true Hebrew Israelites.
And I just wanted to be talking about that Jesus was not white. He was a black man. And I know this is going to offend a lot of you racist Christians out there, man. It's true, man.
Speak it, brother.
I mean, I'm not going to lie. White people are racist, man. Seriously.
Come on.
In that boat.
That's right.
I mean, white people are racist, but I'm not sticking up for, I'm not kissing butt here, but I'm just saying that Jesus was not white.
Speak it.
He was a black man.
Come on.
He was a black man.
That's right.
I got proof to back this stuff up, man. And I'm just saying, man, I see white Jesus all over the churches, white Jesus all over the walls. And Jesus wasn't white, man. You preachers know that. You preachers know he wasn't white. You're afraid to stick up for the true Jesus Christ.
That's right.
Are you serious, man? What are you doing? You're just wasting your time, man. I mean, if you're not going to preach the true gospel, I mean, you might as well just sell your soul to Satan, man. You ain't fooling God.
Awesome.
But anyways, I'm coming just to tell you people, man, that Jesus was not white. He was a black man. And a lot of people do not know this, man, because this is just a lie that's been going around. And I know preachers read this stuff, but they don't want to talk about how Jesus was black. They don't want to talk about how Jesus had a rejecting image. They don't want to talk about that. They want to make Jesus white. You can't make Jesus white.
Come on. Wow.
Revelation 17, everybody.
All right. That was good, Josh. Yeah, we're going to come back.
We understand the rabbit hole is deep.
Sure is. Come on.
And it's amazing to me that people who read the Bible, so-called Christian pastors, Well, not really. It's not that amazing to me because
They know.
it's. I'm really not dumbfounded. Really. How can you read certain things in the Bible
And ignore it.
and ignore it, or say either? See what Christians do. They use something called plausible deniability.
Wow. Good
Which
word.
means if they don't want to believe it, it's not in the Bible or it doesn't matter.
Jeez. Wow.
So they use, because they would rather worship a God that makes them feel comfortable. And they would rather worship a God where they don't have to actually expose what white people don't have to come out. White pastors would rather teach a Bible where they don't have to expose their sins. And most of these white pastors, especially popular white pastors in the world, are Jewish.
Come on.
They don't want to. Well, they know what would happen to them
Sure.
if they spoke the truth.
The church,
But they
empty.
don't. They're not going to tell. They don't want to tell the truth about what their people done.
Come on.
Because that would bring up resentment. And as soon as you read Revelation 1:13 and 14, you have 13 through 15. You have to come to grips with, if Christ was not white, then who is he? Then what was he? Right?
Let me say something real quick.
Because white people and Christians and stupid religious Christians want to use the certain places in the Bible where the Bible calls the children of Israel ruddy, not knowing that was a mistranslation by the King James later after the King James, because King James was a black man. King James did not put ruddy in the Bible. Ruddy came from the Roman Catholic Church because they wanted you to they wanted to paint with the Bible a picture of white people. The real word that should be there is dazzling, or brown, because even ruddy, you know what ruddy is? If you've ever seen mahogany wood, let me show you.
Yeah. Let me say something real quick while you're finding that, Josh. Folks, viewers, listen to this. If every pastor was honest and they know who the chosen people are, their churches would get so angry with them, they would leave. More than half would leave every church. Their churches, right, Mary, would be empty. If they all repented this week and Sunday morning come and they tell their church, they're going to be disheartened against these pastors, they're not going to trust them, and they're going to walk out one at a time, and it's going to empty out.
How do you spell
dazzling?
Before we go to
Ruddy?
Revelation.
R-U-D-Y.
No. Oh. Before we go to Revelation.
Yeah, 17.
Go to Song of Solomon 5 and 10.
Song of Solomon. Next to Psalms, right? If they're
Song of Solomon.
If the Hebrews, right? I mean, if they're Proverbs, right? Okay.
How do you spell mahogany?
How do you spell mahogany?
M-A-G-H-O-N-Y, I think.
Like Song of Solomon, where are we going, Tony? Josh said, spoken. Where are we going? Song of Solomon?
Yeah.
Where?
I think 3.
3, Josh? All right, we'll stay in 3 until ruddy, R-U-D-Y. Now watch what ruddy really means and watch what it looks like.
No. How do you?
R-U-D-Y.
No, mahogany.
Oh, mahogany. And that's the wrong spelling. There's an H in there somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in.
M-A what?
I think it's GHONY.
There you go. Now show him mahogany.
Now read
All right.
read
Song of Solomon.
3
what? Come on, Josh. 3 what?
5.
All right. Song of Solomon after Proverbs 3:5. Ready?
3:10. I mean 5:10.
All right, 5:10.
Song of Solomon 5:10.
Mary. See, if you don't do research like this and you just read the Bible and you listen to these pastors in these churches, that's the whiting. That's the white out
Tactic.
attack. That's right. Tactics that are against the true people of the Most High in these Christian churches. Ready? My husband is white and ruddy.
So again, ruddy. This is what ruddy is in the Bible.
Right, same thing. My beloved is white and ruddy.
So again, or let me get another example. That's what ruddy is in the Bible.
That's what ruddy looks like.
Even like this, reddish brown.
That's right. Almost like your wall, Josh. Almost. Like this. Closer to this, right?
Yeah, that's mahogany.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like the table.
What table?
Coffee table.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like that.
Like this, too.
Uh-huh. There you go.
One's lighter than the other.
Now you know what ruddy looks like.
That's what ruddy looks like.
See, but you're in a ministry for so many decades and so many centuries brainwashed into these teachings. It's not going to be easy for you to come out of them unless you do your research like we have and we found out the truth. There's nothing wrong with that. The more you listen to these pastors telling you don't go on YouTube, the Bible says those who are ignorant, what? Let them stay ignorant. Because, I'm out there by myself with my family's home. And I thank the Most High, there are millions now, millions and millions waking up. And I don't feel alone anymore. But sometimes I feel alone out there. Because you have this truth and you got so many brainwashed people I meet.
This is examples of mahogany wood.
Or shades, different shades.
Which are different shades of brown and red. So Solomon, and read verse 11 as well. Solomon.
All right. 5, 10. Now here's 11. His head is as the most fine gold. His locks, what? His locks are what?
Bushy.
And black as a
Raven.
All right.
Color raven is.
Now you know, right. Now you know what he looks like. See, it's all in the word, but you won't look at it. Because you were told, it don't matter. It don't matter. What matters, Christian?
That's
Why do you go to
King
church?
Solomon.
There you go. There's King Solomon. Make it bigger, Josh. Make it bigger. Make the picture bigger. Get it bigger. There you go. That's King Solomon. And these are ancient archives, right? These are real pictures.
These are relics before
these weren't just made up yesterday.
This is before the Roman Catholic Church came in and changed everything.
Right. And paid all their artifacts and all their artists. Here.
Like that.
There you go. Who's that? Look at Solomon, man.
No. This is. Can you call him maybe tomorrow morning?
Thank you.
So we just showed you.
Come on, Josh. See, the more you listen to people who don't want you to know who you are, they will always tell you not to go on YouTube. And they'll even cause they'll tell you, even these brothers that are telling you the truth are delusional and are bringing, what's that word that brother accused me of? Deceivers. You better watch what you say. You can't speak against the Bible like that. The Bible speaks truth. But the Christians got a special way these pastors to twist words.
And like I said, if they tell you, if they mention anything about color or Christ being brown skin or black, then that opens a wormhole of things, because then you'd have to not only tell everybody that Christ is black, then that would bring a pastor to have to tell who the real Israelites are.
And what we just said, they all leave. They'll get so mad at this pastor, they won't hate him or hurt him, but maybe 1 or 10 at a time are going to walk out of there, and his church is going to empty out. Because they're going to want to know, why haven't you told us the truth?
So
what are you hiding from us?
Revelation. That's why people have
17. Okay.
Have been leaving Christianity recently.
Millions, Josh.
Because
millions.
no one's being taught anything.
That's it. Hey, listen, hold on.
No, read.
Wait. I spoke to a brother that left the church an hour after, and I asked him, what you learned today? He couldn't even remember what the pastor was teaching. All right. Okay. Revelation 17. I said, don't do that. The judgment of the great harlot. Come on, you got a lot to expound on. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters.
Now, we know the great whore in John's time and today is Rome. Who is Rome today? The EU and America.
Wow. All right.
How does America sit on many waters?
With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication.
To prove this is America, I'm going back to Google Images. Google Images. US. And let me show you some. Read verse 1 again, Dad.
And there came out of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters.
Now, this is a world map showing you all the U.S. military bases all over the earth.
Look at this.
This is what we just read in Revelation.
Come on.
This is Rome,
that's it.
The EU, and America. America is the great whore.
And who's starting really all these wars?
Who sits on many waters?
Come on.
Or has embassies or bases all over the earth.
Wow, that's great.
Hold on. Let me show you another map. Look at this. All over the earth. That's all America's military bases.
Wow.
Again.
And they're telling you that they're protecting us? No, they're not. They're getting ready to hit us worse than you'll ever know. You thought 9/11 was bad?
Again, I'll just go back to the one I showed first. So, read verse 2.
All right, ready? With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and
the kings or the rulers of all these nations have what? Committed fornication or accepted the philosophy of America.
Come on.
Read.
And the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk.
So all their people have been weakened. Read.
with the wine of her fornication.
Or of her religious or secular ideologies.
Now, if you've been taught on the Christianity revelation, you're going to have a hard time believing the truth
Again,
about this. Go ahead, Josh. Ready?
To find out
All right, good.
about this, all you have to do is go to Google Images and type in U.S. bases to find out who. And again,
look at this. Look at this. Look at these killing machines that Esau has made. Look at this.
This is who Revelation 17:1 and 2 is speaking about.
Wow.
And here's Rome's army. This is Rome's army. Hold on, one more image before we read. We're on verse 3, right?
Yeah, we're still in 3. We didn't finish it yet.
Well, yes. Well, we'll start in 3.
Yeah. Of fornication. Yeah. All right. So we'll start 3. Show him, Josh.
This is. Oh, hold on. Let me get a better picture. That's Rome's army today. And look who's predominantly.
Look at this. All the tribes.
Mm-hmm. Rome's army under Rome's flag.
Wow. That's right. Wait. Say that again. That's right. The American flag.
Roman artillery.
Come on. Under the American flag.
Roman military.
And you know whose flag that really is? That's England, Rome, and America.
And look, they even have the goat head star as their symbol.
Wow.
And let me show one more. This is the U.S. Rome's Navy, or the U.S. Navy. And look, they even have
the eagle in Deuteronomy.
Showing you who they are prophetically. Look at this.
Wow.
Roman destruction.
Oh no, they're protecting us.
No, they don't work for you. They work for the Pope.
That's right. Come on, Josh.
Roman army. Roman submarine.
You see this, Mary? This is something, huh?
Roman aircraft. Look at this. Hold
Esau.
on.
All Esau.
This is Rome's military today.
Under Esau.
Under the Rothschilds.
That's right.
So.
Wow. Okay, Revelation 17:3. You want me to read, Josh? So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. And I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast.
Now, back then, again, as we've shown you, who is this referring to? The literal Roman Empire.
Full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns.
Because Rome sat on 7 mountains, and just like the Catholic Church, it sits on Vatican Hill.
And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color.
Which are the
England's colors, Rome.
That's
America.
That's the Catholic Church's colors.
And decked with gold and precious stones. And pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication.
So the golden cup is the communion chalice that the Pope drinks out of.
Come on.
Read.
Was a name written, Mystery Babylon, the great, the mother of harlots and abomination of the earth.
All right. You want to expound, Joshua? That's all right. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints, only the Hebrews, and with the blood of the martyrs of Yashayah. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration.
So who is this mystery Babylon? Why did Paul,
John
the Revelator, write it as like that? Because he knew he knew who he was writing about, but the Romans could not know who, so he had to write it as if it was a parable. But the people that were followers of Christ and had the understanding knew perfectly who John was referring to. So again, who is he referring to? He's referring to America today, who is a servant of the Roman Empire.
7. And the angel said unto me, wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is, when Rome came back to life. And here is the name which hath wisdom. Now remember, I want to stop right there for a second. They can't do nothing without the world leaders. What do you call the Rothschilds, the Bilderbergers? They're the ones who have control of all this.
So basically, there's been 8 empires that have ruled the earth: Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medes, the Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Ottoman Turks or Islam, and now America, or the EU and America.
The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth.
And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen,
Read.
And 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, America, he must continue a short space.
That is why America is the youngest empire in the earth to have worldwide influence.
And it's gonna end the youngest too. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition.
And the 10 horns which thou sawest are the kings. Are 10 kings which have received no kingdom, and yet
as yet.
So wait a minute. The 10 kings are referring to the 10 original European nations that Rome would end up conquering, and now are part of the EU. So after America falls, the power will go back to Europe.
But receive power as kings at 1 hour with the beast.
Read.
These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the Rothschilds. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them.
So that is why they are trying to kill his people and take everyone down.
Come on.
Because they don't want Christ to end their kingdom, or the Lamb. Now, again, whenever Christ is referred to in the Bible, majority in the New Testament, he is often referred to as the Lamb. Now, he's also called the Lion because he's going to come back like in the spirit of a lion. But why is he often referred to as a lamb? What is a lamb? It's a sheep, right? What do sheep have? Woolly fleeces.
Come on.
So when it refers to Christ as a lamb, what do lambs have? Dark faces and woolly. Think about it.
That's right, they do. They really
dark
do.
faces or black faces,
Almost
a lot
black.
of them, and woolly hair.
White woolly hair.
So white woolly fleeces.
Come on, George.
So whenever you see that in the Bible, it's referring to Christ's physical appearance as a black man.
Come on. And the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings.
So he, or you could say master of masters.
That's right.
So he is the master of all of the nation, all the kings, and he is the Lord of lords,
Awesome.
and the King of kings. In other words, he's the king ultimately.
And they that are with him are called with him. What does that mean? When they're coming back with him. And chosen and faithful. And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues.
Read that again. Okay.
And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples, multitudes, nations, tongues.
Hold on, everybody. Hold on. And just to show you,
that's why you stopped me once you stopped.
Just like I showed you with America, I'm going to go back and show you something. And watch this. Just you know what they say, a chip off the old block?
Come on.
Hello? Hello?
Okay, everybody, what are we looking at? This is a map. So this is Asia Minor. This is Asia Minor, or Turkey. That's Israel. This is the ancient map of Rome, the Roman Empire. So John would have been on an island in the Aegean Sea, or the Aegean or the Mediterranean. So again,
excuse me.
This is a nation or an empire who will sit on many waters, many nations.
Come on.
Rome, this is Italy, right? That's Rome. They were in Africa, Spain, France, Britain, Germany, Russia, what they call the Middle East. Again, just like today, Rome or America is all over the earth.
Wow.
Again, look at the map. So back to
Revelation 16. And the 10 horns, I'll read it. And the 10 horns, I'll read it. I'll read it. Look, I said I'll read it.
These shall hate the
I'll read it, Mary.
and shall make her desolate, and nations and naked, and shall eat the flesh and burn her with fire.
So,
all right.
The 10 horns, or Europe.
Words, you gotta read the words that are in there. Eat her flesh, not the flesh. Go ahead, Josh.
So, Europe.
Finish it.
Once Christ destroys America, the power will go back to the old Roman Empire or Europe.
That's right. That's right. For Ahayah has put in their hearts to fulfill his will. Now, what does that mean?
So his will is
that's right.
To destroy this kingdom of America.
He's going to tell them to do it. Watch this. All right. And to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of Ahayah shall be fulfilled. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Now, what city
Again,
is that?
we know
Yeah,
Rome did in
Mhm.
ancient world, and America, and New York City, and the UN. Again, show you the modern headquarters of Rome. That's the modern, and look at the flat Earth map.
Wow. Now.
That's the modern.
Go ahead, Josh. They're showing you the Earth
headquarters
is
of
flat.
Rome.
That's right. Look, and they're showing you the Earth is flat.
Again,
They want you to see it. Go ahead, Josh.
Modern headquarters of Rome, right there.
And Josh, show them where these spirits and demons are coming on Mount Hermon. Can you get that? Look at this.
And these are the nations that conspire, Psalms 83, against the children of Israel in secret councils. Only you can't go in their councils, only they can. Headed by Esau.
Mm-hmm. Come on.
This is Esau's, this is Rome's new headquarters in New York City. Everyone understand?
Yeah.
Again, another picture showing you all the nations conspiring. And once this kingdom falls, it's going to go back to Europe. Again, flat Earth.
Josh, flash that picture about the Tower of Babel and see how much it looks like of the United Nations. And Mount Hermon. If we have time, it's all right, but maybe some other time. Look at this. Look at this. It's all right there. All you got to do is just research it. All you have to do is just research it.
Okay.
And you'll find out how much America loves you. Right, man?
What we're going to do now?
When I tell you to stop, stop. You could have read the rest. Just make me yell on the board. This is really good. Very formidable, you know, Josh. Formidable, really.
I'm going to finish this.
I'm trying to help my patients.
Like you both have death wishes or something.
Where we are now, it's uncharted territory. Its use has reached epidemic proportions. Epidemic.
Well, officials call it an epidemic.
You start to hear words like epidemic. You start to hear words like plague, and it fed the public imagination.
At this point, crack is still only in a few neighborhoods of a few big cities.
Most people in America had no idea what crack was. They'd never seen it. But the news media was writing about this plague before the plague, as it were, ever really took hold.
By the summer of '86, crack is the biggest story since Watergate.
You couldn't pick up a newspaper in the mid-'80s where the word crack wasn't on every page. I mean, you'd hit the sports page, it would be Yankees 4, crack 3. Tomorrow, the weather's going to be 80 degrees with a slight chance of crack. You know, it's just crack, crack, crack.
That's what the media does, man. They take something and they run with it for the controversy of it so that they can get the numbers and the ratings. From the beginning, there are plenty of white people smoking crack.
It was really the first time I smoked it that I knew I didn't want to stop.
Everybody I used with was white. You know, they didn't get caught because they had money, more money than me. They weren't in the street yet.
But the media focuses almost exclusively on the black neighborhoods.
Drug dealing has reached epidemic proportions among young black men here.
How old are you? 16, so.
Our television sets were saturated with images of, you know, black men in handcuffs.
It fed into the worst fears that people had, not just about the drug, but about who the drug was associated with. The idea of a threat coming from Black America relative to crack cocaine was to create a sort of massive hysteria.
It's going nationwide, especially among the young. If smaller cities don't have a crack crisis now, they will soon.
Now it's spreading across the nation.
Crack has become America's drug of choice.
Perhaps the exclamation point on all of that was the death of Len Bias.
Just 48 hours after becoming the #1 draft choice of the world champion Boston Celtics, Bias collapsed of an apparent heart attack on the University of Maryland campus.
There he is celebrating, and he dies of a cocaine overdose. No doubt that shook people up.
Leonard Bias was a very healthy individual. The cocaine killed him, period. That's correct.
The dramatic warning that, in fact, cocaine kills. Even the young and the strong can be its victims.
No one actually knew what kind of cocaine he was taking, but because he was an African American, the assumption was that it was crack cocaine.
A specialist in sports medicine speculated what could have occurred.
Somebody substituted crack a very potent form, and he thought he was getting lower doses than he was given.
Crack, cocaine, whatever had been involved for the media, the facts didn't matter very much.
An autopsy will eventually show that Len Bias ingested cocaine powder, but the public will always think he was killed by crack.
Because it was so geographically close to the Capitol, it kind of had greater reverberations than perhaps otherwise would have. So I remember members of Congress saying, "Oh, we got to do something."
Larger numbers of our citizens are suffering and dying from this threat to our national security than any nuclear warfare, any chemical warfare waged on any battlefield.
All of this plays right into President Ronald Reagan's hands.
Yeah,
Already
he
4
brought it to
years into
America.
a mounting war on drugs, he seizes the moment to address the nation.
Today, there's a new epidemic. Smokable cocaine, otherwise known as crack. It is an explosively destructive and often lethal substance which is crushing its users. It is an uncontrolled fire.
With Election Day approaching and polls showing that drug abuse is the public's #1 concern, today's voting became a contest to determine who could be toughest on drug traffickers.
The Republicans in the White House led the way.
Yeah, once you arrest the whole
Democrats were up there yelling and screaming
put them
and
in jail.
pushing for tougher laws.
Tip O'Neill was the Speaker of the House, and he said, "You know what? We're going to start punishing crack more than we punish powder. Chemically, they're indistinguishable, but they should be punished a lot more for crack. There should be no mercy on it." So he said, "I think that the disparity should be 25 to 1. So for every 1 gram of crack, you should get the same punishment as 25 grams of powder." The Republicans said, "No, we're the tough on crime people. We think it should be 50 to 1. Tip O'Neill said 75 to 1. Republicans said, "No, 100 to 1. That's how drug policy gets made.
We're getting tough on drugs, and we mean business. For those who are thinking of using drugs, we say stop. And for those who are pushing drugs, we say beware.
The Anti-Drug Abuse Act of 1986 mandates a 5-year minimum sentence for a mere 5 grams of crack. It means that first-time nonviolent offenders will be sentenced to decades in prison for selling or possessing small amounts of the drug.
It was really very much about demonization. Every society needs its boogeyman. In the 1980s, it became the crackheads, the drug dealers, and the rhetoric was essentially that anybody involved in this was less than human, was a death destroy.
Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity.
But this people robbed and spoiled. They are all of them snared in holes. They are hid in prison houses. They are for a prey, and none delivereth. For a spoil, and none saith, restore. Isaiah chapter 42, verse 22.
How many of our sons and daughters have been sent to prison for minor charges or for crimes they didn't even commit? According to the Huffington Post, there are more black men in prison today than were enslaved in 1850. The 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution states that slavery is abolished unless punishment for a crime. Well, no wonder there's so many blacks in slavery, I mean in prison today. More than it was in 1850.
I'm Megan Murphy for the Huffington Post. More black men are in prison today than were enslaved in 1850. That's the word from Ohio State law professor Michelle Alexander, who's promoting her book, The New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Color Blindness. News One reports, according to U.S. Bureau of Justice estimates, as of 2008, more than 846,000 black men were in U.S. prisons, constituting 40.2% of all inmates in the system. In an interview with the Washington Journal, Alexander argues the incarceration rate for black men is just a new way to discriminate.
It's no longer appropriate or acceptable to use race as explicitly as a justification for discrimination. Instead, today we label people of color criminals primarily through the war on drugs. We label them felons and then engage in all the practices we supposedly left behind.
LA Progressive reports the numbers back up Alexander's theory. Even though studies have shown that whites use and sell illegal drugs at rates equal to or above blacks, in some black inner city communities, 4 of 5 black youth can expect to be caught up in the criminal justice system during their lifetimes.
You know, the Most High said that he was going to appoint terror over us. You see, when we had an opportunity to do right, we chose not to do right. So he appointed terror over us. He said he's going to put us in a land where the land of our enemies were going to eat us up. This is why you see the police brutality that's going on. Now, many of us, we look at these things and it really hurts us to see these things happening to our people. But we have to understand why these things are happening.
That's right.
Historically, if the children of Israel were out of order, the Most High would pour out a judgment on them. You see, and through the Christian church, we've been taught lies to where we think, oh, as many times as we sin, he will forgive us and all of this fluffy stuff. But when you look at the reality of things, the prophecies that were put forth in scripture, they are coming to pass just like the Most High said they would. He said, my word is going forth out of my mouth and it will not return void. So we continue to see our young people dying in the streets because there is a continuance of disobedience. This terror that he's appointed over us, of course, there is a time of deliverance at hand. But we as a people, if we want to see things change, we have got to repent. This is why we have to get in the Word and understand who is talking about in certain passages. You see, we've been told through Christianity that certain things don't matter. That's not true. There are things that do matter, and you simply cannot ignore these things. Understand who a certain passage or verse or chapter is talking about and who it's talking to. Because all of this stuff about it don't matter, yes, it does. That's why you see our young people dying out in the streets.
Nothing matters.
It's important in the midst of all the public vilifying of the police department, whose members acted completely within procedure, to remember Mr. McQuillan was no angel.
What?
What does that mean?
Why would they even say that? What does that even mean?
Talking about somebody's child. That could easily be one of these children here.
That could have been one of us.
No, yes.
Sweetie, no. Because if you get stopped by the cops, you are going to do exactly what they say, okay?
She's right. Listen to me. If you have to talk to the cops, there's only 7 words you need to know. Yes, sir. No, sir. And thank you, sir.
Exactly. You make sure you live to fight your case in court. You hear me?
Oh, Mama, enough. Wake up. Let's say they listen to the cops and get in the car. Look what happened to Freddie Gray.
Yeah, what if they make it all the way to the station? Remember Sandra Bland?
And let's say they do make it to trial. You see where that gets us? Don't you get it, Bo? The system is rigged against us.
Maybe it is, Dre. But I don't want to feel like my kids are living in a world that is so flawed that they can't have any hope.
Oh, so you want to talk about hope, Bo? Obama ran on hope. Remember when he got elected? And we felt like maybe, just maybe, we got out of that bad place and made it to a good place. That the whole country was really ready to turn the corner. What happened? You remember that amazing feeling we had during the inauguration? I was sitting right next to you. And we were so proud. And we saw him get out of that limo and walk alongside of it and wave to that crowd. Tell me you weren't terrified when you saw that. Tell me you weren't worried that someone was going to snatch that hope away from us like they always do. That is the real world, Bo. And our children need to know that that's the world that they live in.
True, that's right. That's right. Come on, that's good. I hope you're listening, boy. This is good. You never seen this. Is it a show? It's see to part two. Leave it, Josh. Don't let them listen to this. Here it is, folks. Did you hear what that brother said? The system is geared against you, not to help you.
Rigged.
Rigged. It's rigged against you to put your children, your people in prison. And they make millions and millions and millions off them in prison.
I called myself a Christian, but it wasn't entirely what it looked like.
Many Christians are in a spiritual fog.
I thought I was the last Christian that would make.
As a revolving door of officers beat and interrogated him until he had no fight left.
So I'm okay. I'll do whatever you want me to do. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do.
He'll sign a confession.
I'll sign.
Based solely on his confession and the testimony of an imprisoned informant who was later discredited, Kitchen was found guilty of all 5 murders and sentenced to death. It would not be until years later that Kitchen realized he wasn't alone. Kitchen's case, tragic as an isolated incident, terrifying as a pattern and practice of some members of the Chicago Police Department, who, according to legal experts, tortured more than 100 men, mostly African American, from 1971 to 1992.
The city tried to keep these reports from being released.
In 1989, working on a tip, investigative journalist John Conroy discovered hauntingly similar reports from suspects claiming to be tortured by Chicago police. Give us a sense of the type of torture that was used by the officers.
Well, the most well-known is electric shock, and there were, as far as we know, 3 electrical devices. There also was one prisoner, Andrew Wilson, who was burned against a hot radiator. Russian roulette was played.
At the center of it all was one man. John Burge is a former Chicago Police Department commander and the face of this dark chapter in Chicago's history.
Why were you so tenacious with this stuff?
People were going to die, and nobody was doing anything. There were a dozen men on death row who were there on the basis of suspect confessions.
Ronald Kitchen was one of them. He spent 21 years locked up, 13 of those on death row. But in the wake of mounting torture allegations, Governor George Ryan made an unprecedented decision to clear all 167 of the state's death row inmates. In 2009, after spending half his life behind bars, Kitchen was exonerated. But in a cruel twist, the woman who believed in that innocence all along would never get to celebrate Ronald's freedom.
Well, my mother was and is, that's my soldier. So when I come home, she has dementia. She has dementia. So now I'm free. Now she locked up, and I hear.
How you think she got worse? Medicine?
California is a weird state because they have laws for pedestrians, like across the street. They have laws for pedestrians, but they don't have laws for people at night when the cops accidentally shoot people. I mean, they accidentally shoot more niggas out here than any place in the world. They didn't even pick up paper. Nigga accidentally shot their ass. How do you accidentally shoot a nigga 6 times in the chest? Well, my gun fell, just went crazy.
Too often, We like to forget the past because the past is just too awful to face. But there are some strange realities that happened way back when that have a direct correlation to what we see happening today. Right now, there's an increase in relationships between black men and white men. No, I didn't say black men and white women, because that is very clear, okay? No, I didn't say white men and black women, because that is also very clear. But the relationship that most don't like to focus on is that, you see, that too is on the rise and is being pushed by the sodomite media
Hollywood
of today. Hollywood has a very significant role in making sure that the things of the past are repeated today. You see, there's this thing called buck breaking that no one wants to talk about or deal with. But I'm going to tell you what buck breaking involved. It was where they would take a strong, muscular black male and his wife and his children, and they would get some puny white boy to come and literally rape this man in the presence of his wife and children and others that looked upon them. This man would be humiliated and literally crushed mentally at the pleasure of some puny white man as he enjoyed this sexual deviant behavior on this strong black man who, if even dared to fight back, would be beaten or killed. And during this breaking process, this black man was humiliated to the point where he could no longer look his wife in the eyes, to where he could no longer look his daughter or his daughters in the eyes, sons in the eyes, because this deviant scoundrel raped this man in the presence of all who looked upon them. Could not say a word. Many times we are reminded of how the slave master raped and impregnated the so-called black woman. But the part that is left out of the conversation is the sexual appetite that these deviant slave masters also had for the black male, which is the reason why they had this buck breaking process. And now what you see happening today with both our men and our women, we have turned our hearts back to the slave master, because now the slave master is saying, no, it's nothing wrong with us having sexual relationships with you. No longer am I your slave master, I'm your lover. And our people, in our ignorance of the scripture and our loss of pride and self-dignity, have said, okay, I will agree to be your bed wench. I will agree to be your male whore by entering into a gay relationship with you, because the media says it's okay, and anyone who speaks against this is now the enemy, even though the Bible tells us that this sexual deviance is wrong. Woe to them that call good evil and evil good. The Bible tells us that these things will happen and that they will make it seem as though good is the reproach and evil is the good. But we, as the children of the Most High Yah, have got to stand against this devilish, demonic activity, because they are using this same stuff to destroy our families from the inside out. You are going to see some clips of what happened when you dared to go against the grain, and that is what we see happening and replaying itself today as they emasculated our little boys and our men, they also raped and sodomized our daughters. They also beat us. They also used our children as alligator bait. We talked about this before, but we're going to talk about it again. These atrocious things that happen to us are now being ignored because we are afraid to face these things, even though there is clear evidence that many of these things are still happening to us. Whether it's overtly or covertly, it is still happening to us. And they are using a systematic approach to killing us legally. But the Most High is saying this came up on us because we were disobedient to his word, and we begged for a king. Even though the word warned us that the king would be wicked and evil, we still said, give us a king. And so the Most High has put us in the hands of those that hate us. He says, those that hate you shall rule and reign over you. And they will kill you and find themselves not guilty.
Oh, the European! Oh, what an honor! I'm beside myself. Did you ever see such hands? If you knew what they're like when they arrive here, places. I could go out of my mind getting them ready, and there ain't such demand. They rip them out of my hands before I'm finished. Come on, darling, show yourself these nice men. Please, gentlemen, go ahead. Look around all you like. Not bad, huh? Guess what they cost? $500? $1,000?
And perform religious rites, which are merely a primitive African version of Christianity. Experience shows that the more religious a slave is, the more humble, resigned, and docile he is. However, the law prescribes that these devotions shall be monitored by a white man. And there he is. In this elemental parody of the Master's religion, Jesus, the Gospel, the Bible are all mixed together. Look at this. Africans instead of Palestine, the ocean instead of the Red Sea, slave ships and sharks instead of Romans, Egyptians, and so on. Here the plantation instead of Golgotha represents the place of Jesus' agony. And instead of Herod, the Master with crosses, flagellations, and other delights. What do the Masters say to that? Does it or does it not prove they have souls? It's the best. Let's see, page 971. Many of the slaves who ran away from the plantations hid in the trackless swamps of Florida. To recapture them, the white men organized extensive manhunts. The most efficient method placed obedient slaves and domestic animals in simulated refugee camps among the mangroves. The most famous of these man traps was right here in the Brandon swamps, where voices and laughter and the smell of roasting pig served as a decoy to the hungry escapees. In fact, in a single morning, the hunters bagged 47 runaways.
Let them read that again. And obey his laws and commandments.
I just want to show you all one more thing before we close.
You see why all of you that are tribe members and Hebrews can come out of the curses if you admit to yourself and repent that you're in an evil Christian religion, and also Muslim and Buddha, wherever you are, even in whatever religion you're in, you don't belong in it. Right, Mary? The longer you stay in it, the harder it's going to be to come out.
Before we close, I just want to share this with you guys, everybody. Hold on.
The sooner you repent, right, Josh? The sooner.
So John Ehrlichman was one of the henchmen for Richard Nixon. I say henchman because he was one of the organizers of Watergate, and that was proven out. He got convicted and sent to prison for his role in the crimes of Watergate. Now, one of the things he got sent to prison for was conspiracy. This Watergate was a conspiracy. They planned to break into the Democratic headquarters, steal information about them, basically undermine our democracy. Right? Well, it turns out they hatched another conspiracy, which Ehrlichman bragged about back in 1994. He said it to a writer named Dan Baum, and for some reason it has sat in the dustbin of history until this moment. And Harper's Magazine, in this April edition, ran his original quotes from back in 94. Ehrlichman, now out of prison and out of politics, felt, I guess, that he had nothing to lose, so he was going to be honest about why they started the war on drugs. And if you remember, it was Nixon. The Nixon administration started what they called the war on drugs back in 1971. Turns out, it was not because they were concerned that drugs were really dangerous for Americans. It was for attacking their political enemies. Now, again, you might think, like, come on, this sounds conspiratorial. First of all, it's the guy who did the conspiracy who's admitting it. Second of all, he got arrested for and convicted on another conspiracy. It's not like he's shy about conspiracies. And Nixon, third of all, had an enemies list. These are all facts. So now here's Ehrlichman in his own words. He says, the Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies.
So this is from a former aide to the President Nixon, a Jew, Ehrlichman.
The anti-war left and black people. You understand?
Nixon's campaign and Nixon White House had two enemies. The anti-war left and black people.
And what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. How do you see that? And then not want to immediately end this nonsense political war on drugs, this prohibition that has proven to be disastrous in its effect.
War on drugs.
But it turns out it was done to be a war on black people.
That's right.
And liberals, who they called
What we
hippies.
said before, right, Josh?
That originally they were trying to use more of the legislation of heroin against blacks, but it turns out later they were like, oh, blacks smoke marijuana just like whites do. Okay, let's arrest them for that. And they arrested them at 4 times the rate of whites, even though they smoke at the same rate. The whole point was to make sure that they could arrest their political enemies. How could you know that and still be in favor of the war on drugs? Well, Ehrlichman goes on. He says,
We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Now, I'm going to show you how they're still doing that in a second. But when asked...
And I'm going to play a little more of this clip, then we'll close out. This has been a good Bible study. And the war on drugs was created against the children of Israel.
That's right.
The war on drugs is not to criminalize everybody. It's only to attack so-called blacks and Latinos. And how did they do that to attack Latinos? What was Scarface all about? A Hispanic drug cocaine dealer to push that lifestyle to Hispanics. Hold on.
Asked about whether he and Dick Nixon intended to do that. He said, quote, "Did we know we were lying about drugs? Of course we did."
This is
come on.
He said, hold on.
That's your government who loves you, folks.
Did we know we were lying about drugs? Of course we did.
So they knew this was, so Nixon and Ehrlichman and the whole Nixon White House knew the war on drugs was not about drugs. It was about killing or putting black people in prison. He said, did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did.
Come on.
This is from a former aide to Nixon.
Wow.
Telling you the war on drugs was a lie.
And it still is. When you hear that today, don't believe it. It's about killing the Hebrew Israelites.
Now, there was one other member of that Nixon administration, and he wound up having a fairly large role later in American politics. Let me show you a picture of it. That's right there, Richard Nixon sitting in the White House with Roger Ailes. Now, what does Roger Ailes do now? Oh, he's the head of Fox News. Back then, Roger Ailes wrote this memo, and he gave it to Richard Nixon. Quote, "A plan for putting the GOP on TV news." Now, keep in mind that Ehrlichman says, night after night on the news, we're going to blame black people for drugs and call them dangerous so we can beat them politically. Now, let me show you what Fox News is doing today, night after night, led by Roger Ailes, who was in that same Nixon administration. Now watch.
About race, not drugs. They feel that police departments are corrupt across the nation. They target African-American youth. They try to track them down for having J's on them, and put them in jail because they hate blacks. I mean, that's what it is. And they totally avoid the reality of why arrests in urban America are higher than suburban America. So you know what's going on, Howard. Why don't you just admit it?
But I think that if you start to arrest their children and give them records and put barriers in front of their futures and their careers, I think people say, wait a second, as you said in the previous segment, this is soft drug use. Why are you arresting and giving this kid a record, especially minority kids disproportionately? They're the ones who get arrested.
Only dealers, Juan. There's no mass arrest of users. No, they get a ticket, Juan. They get a ticket.
I don't think that's right, Bill. And I think lots of people,
but the statistics do show that African Americans, almost 4 times as likely to be arrested.
Why is that?
Well, I think it's because too many cops are fulfilling their quotas by going into minority neighborhoods. But
the crime rates in the
He's right. That's true. What this guy just said is true. The police get higher payrolls and paid more to go plant drugs and drug rings in black and Hispanic neighborhoods, so they could railroad them through their court system into their prison industrial system. So the police and CIA and the courts work together.
This girl in the middle, she's totally against what this brother on the
right said. Urban precincts are off the chart compared to suburbs and rural areas, okay? So the police, by necessity, to protect the poor people there who are being murdered by the hundreds in Chicago, for example, have to flood the zone. And in flooding the zone, they pull people over and they ask them questions. And if they're obviously high or openly using marijuana, they get arrested. It's not a let's hunt down the black people today.
Oh, they have to flood the zone. It's not like we have the war on drugs to hunt black people down. No, Bill, that's exactly why we have it. And here you are, however many decades later, still doing that same propaganda that Ehrlichman wanted to do, Nixon wanted to do, and a young staffer named Roger Ailes wanted to do, who's now your boss. And there you are on TV telling everybody, no, the blacks are more criminal than the whites in the suburban areas, even though they actually do the crime of smoking pot at the same exact rate. But they get arrested at 4 times the rate. Why? Because that's the whole point of the war on drugs. We have.
Now, if y'all want to watch this, it's called Nixon Invented War on Drugs to Attack Black People. So I'm going to put us back on. Hold on. Might keep that clip. Getting ready.
Wow. Well, you heard an earful tonight, I'll tell you. And it's a crying shame, Josh, that the people that we minister to, a lot of them don't want to hear it. You know what they say, Mary? A lot of Afro-Americans, Hispanic, well, it's up to them if they want to do the drugs. No, it's not set up for that reason. It's set up to destroy you. They'll put drugs in your neighborhood on purpose to kill you, to put you in prison, because the prison system is a huge money-making operation.
Yeah. So as we clearly heard from the mouth of this person who worked with Nixon, from his own mouth, he said, we created the war on drugs knowing we don't care about drugs because the drugs make money for us. He said, you know what? We created the war on drugs so we could use marijuana as a catalyst in the black community through the CIA and the FBI to put crack, cocaine, and heroin later on. Notice, what did it start with? Black people would come back from Nam high on marijuana and opium. So they would go back high and they would become pot sellers in their communities. Mm-hmm. So, and I wouldn't doubt that a lot of these ex-military people became part of the game against their own people. Then they slowly used, from marijuana, they went to opium with blacks and Hispanics. Then they went to cocaine in the 80s and crack.
Let me add something in there, Josh. And I noticed, I'm almost 70, I noticed at the end of that war, Tony, they were bombing North Vietnam with napalm, orange, what is it?
Agent Orange.
Agent Orange.
You know why?
That caused a lot of them to do drugs when they got back to America. They couldn't take it.
Because they wanted the opium fields in Asia. Mm-hmm. The whole Vietnam War wasn't about them attacking us.
That's right.
They wanted to clear them out so the CIA and the FBI could confiscate millions of billions of acres of opium.
Clear the air, Josh. Right, poppies. That's right.
Then they could use the opium and the heroin to bring it into the black neighborhoods and the Hispanic neighborhoods, and the cocaine from
the people that hate you will rule over you.
Now,
America hates you.
Why did they go into Iraq? Because Iraq and Iran have large opium and cocaine. You can grow cocaine a lot in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm. That's what that war was about.
And
they didn't care what Americans died over there. You think they cared?
So we see how like we showed you with the UN, how these people plot these things very strategically. They know exactly the plan they are going. They know 10 steps ahead of you what they're going to do. The government and these secret councils are at least 100 steps ahead of all of us. But through the scriptures and through the Holy Spirit, now we're starting to and people may say, why are you so focused on what's going on in the world? Aren't we supposed to be focused on what's God and the kingdom? Well, no, that's a Christian lie.
Mm-hmm.
Because the kingdom is coming down to earth.
Yeah.
And although it's true, Christ is going to renew everything and recreate everything, but we must be very, very aware of everything that is socially going on to condition people to have certain views and opinions against a certain segment of America that is historically been marginalized, and it's not a pipe dream. This is not something black people use to get sympathy. It is true. Black people have always been minoritized and warred against politically because through making them look a certain type of way, they will start to believe that about themselves and follow suit. So we understand the system.
It's all about brainwashing. It is.
So
your government is lethal. They're lethal. They're devils. They're ruled by the Rothschilds. They're ruled by Satan. And you better wake up to it.
So
you better wake up.
Shalom.
Shalom.